Good soldiers follow orders.
Alright guys, welcome back to the Baddest Batch channel. You've got Clint here. We're going to try something new today. We're going to do a deck build with my favorite character from the Star Wars universe and my favorite leader from the Legends of the Force set, and that is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Courage makes heroes. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into Obi. We're going to figure out which color or aspect is the best aspect to play him with. We're going to look at some lines that might make him stronger in particular aspects over others, and then we're going to do a little bit of a deck build. Alright, so why Obi-Wan Kenobi? If you have a look at him, his leader side is pretty generic, but I think it is deceptively strong. So he's got an action here: use the Force, give an experience token to a unit without an experience token on it. So what does that mean? That means that we can effectively play above curve units. So rather than getting a discount on our units to play above curve, we get to use our Force token to give that unit an experience token and make them a higher statted unit, so we're pseudo playing above curve there. So I think this is really strong, but it's all dependent on using the Force or getting the Force token. How do we do that? Well, we'd need to look at our bases on how we can get the Force token, and ideally we need to build around that base to get the Force token as much as possible so we can buff our units. If we go to Obi's leader side, he's a 5 cost, so he deploys on 5. He's a 3/6 Force Jedi Republic, and on attack you may give an experience token to another unit without an experience token. So he's got some relevant traits here. The Force trait, obviously Legends of the Force, is built around the Force mechanic. It's a brand new mechanic for Legends of the Force. 3/6 for 5 probably isn't amazing, especially when we compare him to other 5 cost leaders, but he makes up for it with this ability to give experience tokens out throughout the course of the game. And on his attack, we don't actually need the Force token to do this. So how do we build around getting the Force token consistently? If we've got some bases here, I would say we'd look at green first, but I really don't think double green is the way to go with Obi, so we're just going to discount that straight up. But we'll start with blue, and our first blue Force bases are the 25 health Virgins Temple, which is when the regroup phase starts. If you control a unit with 4 or more remaining HP, the Force is with you. So I did initially look at this one, and considering the units that have been released, the blue units and the green units that have been released in the set, we've got some good 2-cost units like Yaddle, Gungi, which we'll mention Gungi a lot in this video, that if we play them on turn 1, as soon as we get to the next turn, or the resource 3 turn, the second turn, we can attack with that, get the Force token, play a unit, start buffing some units. So we'd want to build our curve out to make sure that all our turn 1 plays have at least 4 hit points. Now, where this is bad is if we play into Tarkin Town decks or decks that kind of use indirect damage, like CAD or Boba 4, where we would then have to tank a whole bunch of damage on our base to make sure that we go into the next round with 4 hit points on our unit. And then if we're playing into CAD, we might not even have that option because they choose where to put the bonus damage that they get. So then we'd go into our generic Force base, where when a friendly Force unit attacks, the Force is with you. Sorry, just going back to that base, you don't need to attack with it. You obviously just get it at the start of the round if you meet those conditions. I mean, this will be the same for all the other bases. This can be interrupted very easily, especially if you're on the draw. Your opponent might be able to remove your unit quite easily with an open fire, with a waylay, and that just sets you back. So that is something that we have to take into consideration when we're building around getting the force as much as possible. If we look at the red 25 hit point base, when a friendly unit deals 3 or more combat damage to an enemy base, the force is with you. Again, we're giving our opponent the chance to interact with our unit before we attack, so we might lose out on getting that force ability for that round and not being able to utilize Obi-Wan's ability of giving that experience token, which means he's just a vanilla leader then, and he's not doing anything. Again, same with just the standard generic vanilla 28 red base. If we go across to the yellow one, it's an action, exhaust a friendly unit, the force is with you. So we don't really want to be exhausting our own units here. We want to take a more aggressive line, an aggressive approach. With Obi, I believe. Some people might say he's more of a mid-range character. I'm an aggro player, so I'm more inclined to build him a little bit more aggro. On the aggro side, being able to give your units experience tokens makes them a little bit more aggro, makes them stick around a little bit longer, and being able to get that additional damage. So it's the same with Crystal Caves. When a friendly force unit attacks, the force is with you. Now, what we have to look at is the units that we can play in each aspect. So as we talked about with Shadowed Undercity or Blue, we have some quite highly statted units that we can play on turn 1 that have 4 hit points. It's the same across the board. Legends of the Force has introduced a lot of turn 1 plays that have a considerable health on their unit side. So we want to take into consideration what our turn 1 plays are and how we can make them stick to the board, so we can trigger the force token and be able to start utilizing the force token. So if we go and doing some research on this, spoiler alert, I have kind of messed around with the build. My personal take is that yellow is the best color to achieve this specific line here. So we're wanting to get the force as much as possible so we can utilize Obi's ability, and we want to do that from turn 1, and the color or aspect that allows us to do that is Cunning. So if we go into a new deck build, we'll choose Obi right here, and then we'll choose the 28 hit point base, generic vanilla base Crystal Caves. Now, if we go to look at the units for this, we'll type in let's just start with force units. We get a lot of good units here. So one way that we can actually get the force token really, really easily is by utilizing ambush units. So we want to look at, and the highest density of force users and ambush units is in yellow. So instantly we play an ambush unit, we get the force. So we'll pop in ambush in our filter. So instantly we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units that can ambush and allow us to get the force. And more importantly, there's this one here, Mysterious Hermit, 2 cost 1/4, that has ambush. So with this, especially if we're on the draw, we can have our opponent play a unit and then play our Mysterious Hermit, ambush in, get the force token, and we can either buff our unit here, Mysterious Hermit, so it becomes a 2/5, or we can just go into the next round with the Force token already. Then we've got Ahsoka Tano. While you control fewer units than an opponent, including this unit gains Ambush. Now, I love this card, but this card has been completely unplayable in the past, and unfortunately, I think it remains the case here. Especially in the early game, we're going to be having the same units. Our Mysterious Hermit isn't going to be able to take out a turn 1 play 99% of the time. So, or they're not going to be able to take out our unit, I would say, with four hit points. So this is probably not very playable here. We'll just click 3 on Mysterious Hermit. We can't play this because it's a double green. Jedi Temple guards. I don't think this is a great card. It has Ambush. It has Restore 2. But it's not really going to be doing anything on 4. All we would be using it for is to get the Force, and there are better cards that we can play on 4 when we might already have the Force. So I don't think this is a very good card to play. I mean, we can get those stats 2/4 on a 2 cost or a 3 cost. Now, Plo Koon, definitely. So we can play Plo Koon, ambush him in. He's probably going to be a 6/6, and we get the Force, which is great because we could ambush this in on 5, use the Force to buff a unit, might even be Plo Koon, deploy Obi, attack, and buff another unit. Deepa Balaba. I like this card, but I don't think it's a 3-of in this deck, but it's strong. It's 6 cost, 5/7 ambush saboteur. It's not going to take out anything big on the ambush, but it's going to survive. It's going to survive a hit. It's got saboteur, and it's going to give us the Force again. So I think that's worthy of like 2 cards. And then Qui-Gon Jinn, great card. And if we play this at the right time, we're going to get a lot of value out of it. So 7 cost, 7/5, Force Jedi Republic, ambush. When defeated, you may choose a non-leader ground unit. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their deck. So this is a 2-for-1 card. So we can probably most likely kill something, and we'll either trade with it and defeat another one of their units and put it on the bottom of their deck, or we have another unit that kind of sticks around that they kind of have to deal with. So Qui-Gon Jinn is definitely a 3-of. What about our Force units that are non-ambush? So our base requires us to have a Force unit that attacks for the Force to be with us. I'm just going to check my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. Nope, we got it. All right, so if we just look at our Force units, we'll just start with the ground. We'll just remove the events for now. We've got a few good Force units that we can add here. For this type of deck, we probably want 10 to 12 turn 1 plays, and we've got some pretty good turn 1 plays that we can use here. So we've already got one in Mysterious Hermit. The next one, which I've already mentioned, is Gungi. Just a solid turn 1 play, 2/5. This guy ain't getting killed anytime soon, especially as a turn 1 play. So we'll add Gungi in, so we've got 6 turn 1 plays there. The next one that we would need to add is this Youngling Padawan. Now, this Youngling Padawan is great for this deck because it's doing what we want it to do. It's giving us the Force on turn 1, and then we can buff this to a 3/4, which will more than likely survive an attack, or if we want to go into the next round with the Force token for another card that we'll talk about in a minute, we can just keep this as a 2/3 And if it gets removed, it doesn't matter because we're going into the next round with the force token. So we've got 9 units there. So we're talking about we want about 10 to 12. I like erring on the higher side of turn 1 plays, so we're probably going to go with 11 or 12. So what are our other options? We've got Anakin Skywalker, Force Prodigy, 1 cost 1/1, hidden, so it can't be attacked on that turn 1, which it's not going to get attacked on turn 1 anyway, and it's also shielded. So if it goes into turn 2, removal, it's going to be very hard to remove it, and even if it does, if your opponent bounces it, they're spending 3 to bounce a 1 cost unit. The downside is that it doesn't really fit into our curve properly. If it was like a 2 cost 1/2 or something like that, or a 2 cost 2/2, probably a bit strong at 2 cost 2/2 with hidden, it would be a lot better. But we want to, what these games come down to is the person who spends the most amount of resources wins the game. You know, it's a basic analogy, but if you're spending all your resources and your opponent isn't, you're always going to have the advantage there. Looks like I've just gone into dark mode because of the time I'm recording. Next is Anakin. I'll try spinning. So 2 cost 2/3. Can go on it can go on a ship. It's piloting. You can bounce it back to your hand and replay it. Look, this goes against our game plan a little bit because it can be removed quite easily, especially if we're on the draw. Someone, you know, Sabine could ECL into it and trade into it very efficiently, and keep a unit on board as well. They might even do that turn 1 with a Battlefield Marine or a Sabine unit. So Anakin doesn't really play into our plan a lot. The next, we've probably got Luke Skywalker. Same sort of deal as the Anakin. I like the Luke, but he can be removed very, very easily. So Luke, we probably don't want Luke. Being a Force deck as well, we're not going to have a lot of ships that we can use to put him on as a pilot. We definitely won't have any turn 1 ships to play. So that brings us to the Jedi Consular. Not the strongest unit, but it's sticky. It's a 2 cost 1/4 with an action, use the Force, play a unit from your hand, it costs 2 less. So we could play this on turn 1, we can attack with it, get the Force, and if he stays on the board as well and we get to 3, we can start playing bigger units then. So this is kind of like our pseudo ramp on the apart from using the Force token to buff our units. So I think at the moment what we'll do is we would put 2 of him in. So that gives us 11 turn 1 plays. All of them are sticky, or they can somewhat give us the Force, which is what we want. So moving into our 3 cost units, the first no-brainer is this Obi-Wan Kenobi. This Obi-Wan Kenobi is great. The artwork's great. It's a 3/5. When you play a unit, Force unit, this unit gains Sentinel, and that includes himself. So this is an instant 3 of in any Force, Green Force deck. The next 3 costs that we want to look at is Venestra Row, however you say it. Venestra is a great turn 2 play, especially if we can get the Force on turn 1, which is what our deck is being built around, is getting the Force on turn 1 or getting it as efficiently as possible. So Venestra is a 3 cost, 3/4. When played, you may use the Force. If you do, ready this unit. So this is why we're kind of leaning, we're starting to lean a little bit more aggressive here, because we can attack with our turn 1 play. We can attack with this, and all of a sudden we've got 5 damage on the board and on turn 2. So this is obviously an auto 3 of as well. More Force users. I think Ahsoka Tano is a no-brainer here as well. It adds a little bit of disruption, especially against aggro decks. You know, attacking their hand and exhausting a unit. So this is just a really strong unit. It was very, very strong, or is very, very strong in Quinlan Tarkentown. And I think it gets a huge buff in Force decks. So we add 3 of that one. If we go look at more 4-cost units, some other ones that we could potentially look at is this Dooku, 4-cost 5/4. It's hidden, so it can't be attacked the time it comes out. Then if you buff it, it becomes a 6/5. What I don't like about it is that it can be easily, you know, takedown can easily be used on it, especially on that 4 resource turn. Even if you buff it, it doesn't put it out of takedown range. So it's probably not the best unit here. The next one we've got is Eth Koth. So probably kind of like a similar explanation to Dooku. It's a 4-cost 5/4. When defeated, you may use the Force. If you do, put this card into play as a resource. Now, because we are trying to build our deck a little bit more aggressively slanted, this is a great unit, especially if we buff it. Just like Dooku, it becomes a 6/5. But because I play a little bit more aggressively, our deck is going to top out at 7. We're not going to go into Yodas. We're not going to go into home ones. I mean, that might be the wrong call, and that might be the way the deck needs to be slanted. But at the moment, we're building a slightly more aggressive version. So when we get to our Deepers and our Qui-Gons, we're closing out the game there. So for that reason, we don't need the ramp on resource 4 or 5. We've also got the Jedi Consular that can work as ramp for us to get our bigger units out a little bit sooner. And we're also going to have a General's Blade. We're going to run General's Blades as well, which also help us get our units out earlier. And because they're all Force... no, Jedi, sorry. Because they're all Jedi, or the bulk of them are Jedi, we're going to get that discount on the General's Blade as well. The next one... We talked about Jedi Temple Guards already with the ambush. The next one, actually another notable mention that I wanted to bring up was this Out of Rim Mystic. This 3 cost 2/6, or if you buff it, it's a 3/7. I would love to add this card in. I just don't think there's the space for it. It's just a vanilla 2/6 that becomes a 3/7 once you add a token to it. But that thing's going to stick around. That's a tank. It might even be like a sideboard card if Boba is still a thing, or Indirect is still a mechanic that we're looking at. But that's just one to keep in mind if we want some bulk in the deck. Now, Luke Skywalker, A Hero's Beginning, is another interesting one that I think fits really, really well in this deck, combined with our unique ambush units. So we could play Luke on 4. We could go into resource 5. We can play a Plo Koon, get the Force, and then we can trigger Luke's ability. When you play another unique unit, you may use the Force. If you do, give an experience token and a shield token to this unit. So we're getting some major action compression by doing that. So we're playing him, we're claiming, we're playing Plo Koon, we're ambushing, we're getting the Force token, we're making Luke a 4/6 with a shield. And then if he sticks to the board, we're doing it again with Deeper. We're doing it again with Qui-Gon. So Luke can start to snowball a little bit. At the moment, I think we're just putting in 2. But that could easily be 3 as well. So next we've got the Plo Koon. we got the Deeper, we got the Qui-Gon Jinn. So we're sitting at about 30 cards here. We just look down, see if we missed anything here. Okay, Kelleran Beck is probably an interesting one to look at. Again, I'm not too sure if we want to go for another 7 cost there. Maybe he might be just a one-of. We'll just chuck 1 in for now, but it's like a U-wing reinforcement for the ground. We're going to add some Mazes in next. So having him there to be able to dig for a Maz to buff with to action compress with a Force unit, or we might want to get a Obi-Wan Sentinel out to just kind of clog up the ground lane a little bit, or we might want to pull a Millennium Falcon as well for a Millennium Falcon or a Venestra to just ready something as well to just put more pressure on our opponent. So we'll add 1 in for now. But other than that, I don't think there's anything else that we really want to add here. I mentioned before that we want to add in Maz, or Mars, however you say it, because she is a Force Fleet Lieutenant, and we all know how good Fleet Lieutenant is. So where is Mars? So we're going to add in 3 for now. 3 might be too much. We might want to go down to the 2 mark, depending on deck space. But 3 at the moment, just to be able to just get in some action compress and get in some extra damage, +2 damage. We'll just have a look at her here. So 3 costs 3/4. When played, you may attack with a Force unit. It gets +2/+0 for this attack. So she's better than Fleet Lieutenant because she's got the extra 4. The downside is that she is not a Force unit, so she's not getting you the Force token. So we might only want 1 of these because this might be more of our late game card. So as we dig deeper into our deck, we're more likely to pull it. We only want to see 1 of these in the game because we want to focus on buffing our units early in the game so we can just overwhelm our opponent by the time we get down to our top end. So 2's probably enough here. All right, ships. The weakness of... another notable mention could possibly be Huang. He's a Jedi, he's a droid, he's 2/4, he gives +2/+2 to another unit. Again, he's not a Force user, which is not surprising, but he makes your units more sticky. And he's not he's not hard to remove, but he becomes kind of like a pseudo sentinel because he has to be removed because he's giving that constant buff to one of your units. So I think there is an argument for Huang over Mars because Huang can also hold a General's Blade and give you the discount as well. So going with Huang might actually be the better option than Mars. Depends how aggressive we want to be and whether we just don't want our opponent interacting with us. I think I prefer the Mars at the moment, just so we can action compress and just spew out damage as much as possible. So let's go to our space. And I think there's only really kind of 2 options here. I don't know what's going on here. I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to refresh it. And then... okay, I'm not too sure what's going on here. Okay, we're going to go to our space. And I think there's only really 2 units we kind of want here. And that is Blue Leader, because it helps us control the space a little bit. Just with Ambush, especially into control decks that might be playing slightly lower statted units. We can attack into like a Inferno 4 or the Onyx Squadron Brute, I think, is a 2/3. Survive, we can buff the blue leader and go into the next round with a 4/2 or whatever it is. The next one would be the Millennium Falcon, Fast Falcon. And this is not a card that we would play early. If we got it in our opening hand, we would probably resource it, because we want it later in the game to just throw down and, be the last pieces, the last points of damage that we need to win the game. So yeah, it's definitely something I'd be resourcing early. If we see it like on 5-6 resources, we probably keep it and use it just to win the game as like a pseudo surprise strike. Next, we want to look at our upgrades. So our upgrades here, pretty standard, is General's Blade, which is obviously, if attached unit is a Jedi, it gains on attack. The next unit you play this phase costs 2. So we might even want to play this, if we're not playing into another yellow deck that potentially has Waylay, we might want to play this on our Gungi, attack for 5, get the Force token, claim, go into the next round, attack for another 5, and that will allow us to play like a Deeper or a Plo Koon, or we could play like another 2-cost. We could play another 2 costs. Does that work out right? If my maths, no, a 2 and a 3 cost. So General's Blade is kind of a no-brainer here, and then obviously the next one would go for more out-of-hand damage is not Hotspot, Hotshot Blaster, and we'll just run 2 of those. So that gives us 44 cards. So now we need to look at events. Now, what sort of events can we run here? If we look at the Force Traded events, let's see what we've got there. Directed by the Force is with you. You may play a unit from your hand. Look, I don't think we really want to be doing that. Our deck is built around getting the Force, so we don't need a card to give us the Force. Disturbance in the Force. If a friendly unit left play this phase, the Force is with you, and you may give a shield token to a unit. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. We are probably going to lose units at some stage, so getting a shield token, giving it to, and getting the Force is good. But again, our deck is built around getting the Force, so it's probably not relevant here. Force slow, give an exhausted unit -8/-0 for this phase. I guess that would be good into green villain decks with overwhelming barrage or something. No, not even then. I'm not too sure what the application for this would be. Force speed is double yellow, so we're not looking at that. Impossible Escape. I think this one interests me. 1 cost. You may either exhaust a friendly unit or use the Force. If you do, either exhaust an enemy unit. If you do either, exhaust an enemy unit and draw a card. So this is actually pretty strong. 1 cost plus the Force token, which I think we can equate the Force token to equal 1 resource. You get to draw a card and exhaust a unit. Like, I think usually when you go to exhaust a unit, it costs 2. So I think this is an incredibly powerful card for 1 cost and use of your Force token. It may be a consideration, especially against aggro decks, maybe. It might be a good sideboard card, but it's not really playing into our game plan here. Psychometry. Choose another card in your discard pile. Search the top 5 cards of your deck for a card that shares a trait with the chosen card. Reveal it and draw it. So look, we're very Force heavy. We could use it to dig for Force cards. Again, I don't think it's playing into our game plan. We're pointing to play very aggressive and use our ambush units to remove other units and develop a big board. Trust your instincts. Use the force. If you do attack with a unit, it gets +2/+0 for this attack and deals its combat damage before the defender. So this is just a shoot first with the upside of it being +2 rather than +1. But you have to use the force token. I think I'd rather just play Surprise Strike because you're getting 3 for 2. You're not getting the value. Like if we're equating the force token to equaling 1 resource, it's 2 for 2. Force Illusion, exhaust an enemy unit. A friendly unit gains Sentinel for this phase. We're not interested in that. Mind Trick, exhaust any number of units with a combined power of 4 or less. If you control a force unit, those units lose all abilities and can't gain abilities for this phase. This would be great versus leaders, but the leaders that it would be relevant on are above 4 power, would come out with above 4 power. You know, especially things like Kylo. Not that I think Kylo's going to be meta, the new Kylo, but if you're letting him come out on 7 and you've got no answer to him, or you haven't won the game by the time Kylo deploys, you're probably fighting an uphill battle to come back from that. Discard, tip the scale, look at an opponent's hand and discard a non-unit card from it. Look, I mean, it's a neutral yellow card, which would go into some discard decks, but we're a hero deck, we'd rather just play Spark of Rebellion. Premonition of Doom, the next time you take the initiative, this phase exhaust all units. So this is kind of like a get out of jail free card. You play this, they might get in 1 attack, you claim, but it's very telegraphed. So I don't think this card's very good. The Will of the Force, I think this card has gotten a lot of chatter. 4 costs, neutral cunning. Return a non-leader unit to its owner's hand. You may use the force. If you do, that player discards a random card from their hand. So it's removal and discard at the same card. I think 4 costs might be a little bit steep, plus the force token might be a little bit steep for this card. It's not playing into our game plan again, and it might be different if it was targeted hand removal for 4 plus the force token, but I don't think it's really what we want to be doing. Luminous Beams, 6 costs. Put up to 3 force units from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in a random order. Give that many units +4/+4 for this phase. This is a closer, this is a bomb, but this is probably more a draft card. So I know we just went through all of those, but we're just looking at the force traded cards that are in green, yellow. You might be asking, why haven't we gone red to play Force Throw? Again, I explained that at the start of the video. I think the stronger force cards and the game plan that we're trying to achieve with Obi, with the ambush units, our game plan is better in yellow. But there are a couple of other cards that I want to look at. The first one is Sheehan Flurry. 1 cost. Play a force unit from your hand. Doesn't even cost the force either. It gains ambush for this phase. The next time it would be dealt damage this phase, prevent 2 of that damage. So we can play, for example, we could play an Ahsoka Tano on 5. Not that we would, but we're just using it as an example. Play it for 5. It would only take less than 2 damage back because it takes 2 less damage back from the ambush, and we get the force token, all for 1. And we might be able to remove a smaller turn 1 or turn 2 unit with that. So I think that is like probably a 3 of, maybe it's a 2 of, because we're running out of deck space here. The other one would be Surprise Strike. So we'll add that one in. Now, the other interesting one that I think could be really good especially in this specific deck, and especially comboed with ambush units, is the Burden of Masters. It's a 1-cost green. Put a forced unit from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck. If you do, play a unit from your hand and give it 2 experience tokens. So this kind of makes... This gives our ambush units a lot of value. So we can play a Plo Koon on 6 for 6 resources. It is then hitting for 8. That can clear out a lot of stuff. And we get the force token as well, because this doesn't cost the force token. So I think there's an argument for like this. There's an argument for a combination of the 3 of these cards. It might be a case of it's just 2 of each, because you notice we've got no removal. I'm an aggro player, I don't play removal. Our removal is our ambush units. And you could argue that this Burden of Masters is a removal card, and the Sheehan Flurry is a removal card as well. Maybe we just want to go 2 of each for now, and then we can adjust to whatever the meta kind of forms around. So that's my Qui-Gon deck. Sorry, not my Qui-Gon deck, my Obi-Wan Kenobi Crystal Caves deck. I haven't played any games with this. What we're going to do this weekend is we're going to print this deck out. We're going to make some proxies. And I'm going to play a game with Tivi, who is going to create a deck, print it out, and we're going to do a webcam live play of our decks. Sideboard cards, I'm not too sure. We don't know where the meta is going to go. I think something like this would be really good into Sabine, but it would be really bad into Control. So our sideboard probably has to be skewed towards Control cards, like adding in cards that help with the Control matchup. Maybe something like a Chewbacca that can just hit the board and it's hard to remove. Something along those lines, but we'll have to dig deeper into the sideboard for that. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'm really excited to play this deck. Usually I'm a Sabine player, so Sabine is my #1 girl. But one of my big regrets from the Twilight set was not digging more into the blue Obi-Wan from Twilight. So I'm really excited about this deck. I'm really excited about this leader, especially that he's 5 cost. I generally don't play leaders that cost more than 5. I've delved into 6 cost leaders a little bit, but I don't like them. But if you get a chance to play this, give me some feedback. Leave a comment in the leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, what changes you'd make, what suggestions you have for this, and we'll try them out. And as always, remember, good soldiers follow orders.